Good evening, everybody. I would like to call this Cultural Council meeting for November 10 to order. And before we start, I would like everybody to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So just to introduce ourselves again, my name is Sumia Ilhaj.
I'm Chloe Gladue.
I'm Ching Lee.
I'm Lonnie Stevens.
I'm Samantha Harrington.
I'm Farah Sheikh.
Brandon O'Brien.
Great. And just before we start, in terms of that we'd like to share the mission statement again with everybody, for anybody who's watching that's new. So the Riviera Cultural Council is composed of diverse members appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. It seeks to collaborate with local and neighboring organizations on programs which will elevate Riviera's diverse, extensive heritage and cultural background. We also seek to make the arts more accessible by providing Riviera's artists and cultural groups with opportunities, including grant funding. We aim to serve segments of Riviera's population, including underrepresented communities, with a focus on lesser heard voices. And with that, just wanted to open it up if there are any happenings or events in the city, and if you please share, if there are any events, please share them with us so that we can post them on our social media and to share it with everybody else. And also look forward to our future events that will focus more on our mission statement as well. Since not many members are present today from the public, let's move on to the agenda in terms of applications. And in terms, I just want to start by saying that, again, thank you for everybody who took the time and submitted their applications. It meant so much to see the diversity in field and just the passion for the passion projects that everybody submitted. So we really want to thank you for that. And we're gonna go through.
I just also wanted to add one thing before we do that. I really want to thank Next Stop Revere and any other organizations in Revere that really helped us elevate the voices here and be able to distribute this. We had more applications than we had. We had 10 more applications than we did last year. So we're really fortunate to be able to hear new voices in Revere and old voices coming back.
Great, thanks, Chloe. And also, again, a shout out to Chloe for also helping with the translation and making it more accessible to everybody as well. And so we want to be transparent in terms of to say that some of our members also submitted applications, and in terms of the process for that will be fair, where those members who submitted will step out and sit out that meeting. But we're going to go through the applications just to introduce share with everybody the different projects. Does anyone have any input or comment? So in terms of a rubric that we wanted to make it more into a yes, maybe, and no's, and of course those that are no's, it's more that, again, we have a limited budget, and I'll pass it on to Lani to just talk a little bit about the total amount of our budget.
Yeah, so for this fiscal year, we have $61,584 available for granting out. And like Chloe was talking about, we had the most applications that we've ever had. And people throughout all these 25 projects, it summed together to be $80,728 that people were asking for. So the difference would be approximately $19,144. And so that amount would be the amount of projects that we couldn't completely fulfill. So we might be able to partially fulfill a project, but we wouldn't be able to completely fund it.
Thank you, Lonnie. And in terms of, just opening it up in terms, how do we feel about being, in terms of, does it make sense? There are, in terms of thematically, we have projects that touch on education, making it more accessible for students to visit a museum, for example, or different types of dancing from flamenco to hip hop, or just in terms of like, do we want to establish, in terms of going through the applications, do we want to say, if we have 5 projects that are focusing on dance, to limit it to a field, or do you all think that we shouldn't, and we should just look at project on its own? Particularly because in terms of the mission statement, we want to try in our best abilities to make sure that it's a focus on new voices, lesser heard voices, as well as voices of all Revere, but just to give opportunities for more inclusion. Do you have any suggestions or comments?
Well, I think perhaps, if we're going to make those types of decisions, we should look more closely at who it's going to serve. So if it's something that maybe doubles up a little bit, but both projects benefit, say, Revere school children, naturally, I think that would help us make the decision there. If they benefit Revere seniors, something like that. So yeah, even if there's multiple dance programs or multiple educational programs, I think it's most useful to look at who it's going to benefit most and let that inform our decision.
Okay, great. All right. So moving on to the list of, so we are going to go through them today. So the first project is Street Chalk Pop-Up. This is the amount, the request is for $1,000, and it will give it's a mural that includes words and information in multiple languages as well. If anybody has more information, they can feel free to add as well. So it says that they will serve 2 purposes. The mural will be used to advertise signature Revere Beach event, like movie night on Revere Beach, or the International Sand Sculpting Festival, as well as make it so that children and families are invited each week to help create the mural.
I think this is a solid one. I have no objections to it.
I know that they've also worked with Revere before when we had the Revere Art Festival earlier this year. So I think it's really great to have businesses want to do more than one event with us and then come back and want to do one for our community in particular. So I definitely back this one.
I'm gonna add my only, I also feel the same way. I think my only question that I had is multiple languages. Will it be which languages? And also, I would be very interested if this is a yes for us to actually be engaged, so that to provide that information, because that's something we've been working as a cultural council to make sure that we include a lot of actually languages, especially lesser heard languages. So I think that's something that would be fantastic, but that it actually touches on a lot of communities and a lot of languages. So that was my kind of, so if this is a yes, I would love for us to really be engaged and provide that information. All right. Great, so.
Do we want to discuss if we're partially funding, or how do we want to do with the funding today? Do we want to just say whether we are doing this event, or do we want to save finances for next meeting?
No, that's actually a fantastic question. So if we could, I don't know, my suggestion is to go through the yeses, just our initial reaction, and that, of course, we could always, going back once we tally the amount, Lani, in terms of does it meet, does it exceed? But I think it's just right now our initial reaction, the yeses, the maybes, and the nos.
I agree with that.
I set that into motion.
Great. Awesome.
Second.
Great. Well, I'll move on to I should have approved. So I'll move on to number 3. This is from the City of Revere Recreation Department, and it's a request for $5,000, and it's a field trip program for students in grades 4 to 12th grade with families, actually. And the museums will be including Fine Arts, Stanford, Nature Center, as well as the Boston Museum of Science. So it's really taking families as well. So any comments?
I think this is an important one, especially given how the last couple of years of school have gone, what with remote and hybrid. A lot of these kids, if you look at, grades 3 and 4, they may have never had a field trip yet. So I think this is an important one. I'm totally in favor of it.
I'm also in favor of it. Anything that has to do with experiential learning in schools, I'll definitely get behind. So I'll second that.
I also am in favor of it. We haven't had any, trips, and it's so unfortunate for the children. They haven't had any involvement with academically, fielded trips.
I also really just wanted to add that I love that we're including families in this as well, and also acknowledging that learning does not have an age, and that although these might be for students, families can also engage and learn with them as well.
Obviously I agree. I think it's just more out of the only question I had is it also something that the Museum of Fine Arts or these particular museums can provide? I know that the library has free tickets, but I wonder if it's a conversation with the museums to actually provide. That was just a question that I would love to hear more from the recreation department. But it's a fantastic trip, a fantastic project, and as Chloe said, especially with families. But that was a question that we would love for us to come back to. So we're not again approving the amount yet, but just in terms of the yes bucket. So do I have an approval?
I'll approve it.
Okay, great. Second?
I second.
All right. So the next one, number 4, is also from the City of Revere Recreation Department for a request of $800. And this is more on the music side. The classes offer a hands-on approach of learning about Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latin, and other rhythmic forms from around the world. It's from Zoomix, and the students will use authentic instruments to create percussion. So the Zoomix actually are classes, but the classes will be removed if the grant was funded. It's usually $20 for 4 classes. Any comments?
I think this is really the type of project that we were looking towards, seeing lesser heard voices, especially Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Latin. I have not heard much about that from the City of Revere and in any programs before, so I think this is a great program to be able to expose students to this type of culture.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, great. All right. Do we have a second? You said second? Okay, approved. Moving on to number 5. This is the New England Times for a request of $1,800. And it offers the town live music performances. but also with a focus on jazz. So it's a band that features Denny, apologies for mispronouncing of names, but it's based out of Massachusetts and explores the sounds of New England jazz. So how do we feel about, and also feel free to take a minute to read more information as well.
I think my only concern is just what venue would house this event. I don't know if anyone had seen that in there. I was just a little confused on where this event was taking place.
I think it says American Legion
Yeah.
lawn.
Yeah.
And also, I have a question about this application. How many times of the event? Is that a one-time event or multiple times? It's not, seems very clear in the application.
Okay, so do we want to reach out and ask more questions on that one?
Yes, I think some follow-up questions would be helpful.
Okay. But as of right now, would that be a maybe category or a,
I think maybe sounds right.
okay. All right. Do I have a second to approve that?
I second.
All right. The next, number 6, this is also, it's called, apologies, I think it's called Wange, Rhythms of West Africa, Brazil, and the Caribbean. And this is from the Immaculate Conception Elementary School for a total of $1,570. So it says here that students will discover celebratory West African dances and their adaptations in Brazilian and Caribbean cultures. So there will be 2 separate developmentally appropriate performances, one for kindergarten to 3rd grade and one for 4th to 8th grade. I think it was also great to see that the program features authentic costumes and instruments and can include narration in African art, culture, and history.
When looking at the project overview, I really like that it's targeted towards students. And I also think that it's really unique that there's a separate group for students who are around the kindergarten age to 3rd grade, and then one from the 4th to the 8th grade. I feel like hopefully there can be some more just targeting in terms of the lessons that are learned and the takeaways. And I think it's a cool opportunity for the students for sure.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, great. Number 7 is from the James A. Garfield Elementary School for a request of $2,900. It's a trip, so it's actually a trip to Plymouth to teach students about indigenous populations of Plymouth. It will study the life of pilgrims in Wampanoag tribe within the classroom. It will help make learning more authentic and concrete.
I have application 7 listed as,
Did I make a mistake? I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I have it listed as 2nd grade teachers at Garfield Elementary, but they would like to expose the students to live theater. The play that they want to see is Make Way for Ducklings, which is a children's book that's set up in Boston.
Okay. Let me see. Feel free to, Chloe, if you want to.
Yeah, there's 3 applications there from the Garfield in a row.
Oh, I see, okay.
I think my only question for this would be that they're asking for $2,900, but it's still a cost of $21 per person who attends. So I think, for me, I would just need to see more information about the financial.
Yes, Chloe, I noticed that too. There was a little bit of a discrepancy.
It does say in the budget as well that 1,600 was put aside for tickets to the play, but it would still cost them 21, so I think we would just have to do a little more research.
The number that I saw that the project would cost is 2,680, but they were requesting 2,900. I don't know if somebody can confirm that.
I can confirm that. I'm looking at the budget right now. $1,680 was for the tickets to the play, and the extra 1,000 was for the bus fee.
Okay.
I do not know where the extra 220 came from.
But we can always reach out and verify. I do like that it's theater for students. I think that's a, in terms of exposure and bringing the arts, I think that's pretty, personally in favor of that. But what, is this a yes bucket, a maybe bucket?
Well, I think for these three projects here from the Garfield, the previous comments about field trips apply here too. And they've also said, they've been pretty clear that, fundraising within this community would be counterproductive. Students are below the poverty line. If we're unable to receive funding, the students will not be able to experience. Like, it's simply not gonna happen.
Okay.
And again, maybe I'm just, I'm thinking about, these are Revere, students who aren't gonna have this experience otherwise. So I'm inclined, even if it seems like a lot of money, I think these are worth, asking whatever questions we have. Like we said, that extra 280 or whatever it was, can we straighten that out? Otherwise, I think these are all worthy projects.
I actually, I think we should put this in the yes pile until further questions, because they honestly, the Revere Public Schools haven't been successful with fundraising, and, they haven't had great opportunity with the pandemic. So we've taken a lot from the kids, and this is maybe a way to give back to the kids, So I definitely think this should be in the yes pile.
I agree with the funding. I think what questions I had was more the fact that the students still needed to pay for it. I think that was my discrepancy for it. If they're completely paying for students, I am on board, but I think the discrepancy between having the fees and then the $21 per person was just more where I was confused with that. But I am in agreement to put it in yes, furthering questions about that with the school.
I agree with you, Chloe. I think that it sounds like a great project, but if we're saying that theater is difficult for students who are economically disadvantaged to be able to experience, and $21 per person could still be a financial strife that somebody might prohibit somebody from being able to attend. So I feel like that's something that we should be able to work out through some questions and some dialogue there.
And if it comes to that, actually, because of the budget, it's still that, I'm just saying, is this a yes, but potentially maybe if you're saying that students have to pay 21? If they would have to contribute, is this a yes, maybe yes pile, but then potentially maybe?
I think we just need to know, if it's already been established that those families will pay the $21, or through that discussion, are we gonna find, a donor maybe who would kick in, that $21, or if we can find the money ourselves somewhere. Just explore those possibilities.
I also just want to be clear, when we make this decision, are we making it for all three of those applications for the Garfield Public Schools? Because there was one for Make Way for Ducklings, and then there was the other one for, I think that was the one that's in you, was reading, the one
Yeah, the
about
Plymouth,
Plymouth
yeah.
Plantation.
Mhm.
And then, I think that there was an additional one,
Franklin Park Zoo.
Franklin Park Zoo, yeah. So I'm for moving forward with all of them, as long as we can make those clarifications. For me personally, this would be a yes. But then just follow up with those questions. But
Is there any way that we could go through the individual projects though, just before we approve them or just put them in the yes column, because it sounds like they're all pretty unique, so I feel like it deserves some time.
I would agree as well, because the Plymouth Plantation one, it's grade specific, and also the trip is only including the price of admission, so students would still have to pay for transportation, so I would like to go through individual ones. I also agree with Sam with that.
I'll actually pass it on to you. Do you wanna go through those three to go to number 7?
Yeah, so number 7 is a 3rd grade field trip at the Garfield Elementary School Division Plymouth Plantation, a living history museum. And they're asking for $1,400, but this does not cover transportation. This would only cover the price of admission for these students.
So I think personally, in terms of voices and indigenous voices, that is something that, in terms of our mission statement, that's something that, especially in education, I really feel strongly about that one. I think, I don't know, I think even in classes as a student here going to Plymouth, that was really, really helpful to learn about indigenous Americans in the United States, which often don't get the space and the voice. So I'm in favor of, strong favor of that.
I feel like for me, when I look at this, I think it seems like a fantastic project and super culturally informative. My question would just be, how much do each of the students have to pay for transportation? Like similar to the last project, I mean, like I said, $21 could be a make it or break it for some students who are economically disadvantaged. So I would just be curious to know how much transportation would be per student.
I would also like to add that they are having ASL interpreters for students there as well. So they are translating this into multiple different languages. They had written that English is a second language for some of these students.
I think the only, in terms of the total amount, we have $2,680 for the Wheelock, $1,504 for Plymouth, and $1,500 for Franklin Park Zoo that we're gonna discuss. And I think it was just more, again, the question that comes to my mind is if we have an applicant, multiple applications from one applicant, or do we feel that it's students, this is really, especially with the pandemic, as you said, Farah, that it's really needed. So that was just a question, and it's not a lot of money for each.
I will say each project is so different and serve a different level of students in the school. Even all these 3 projects come from Garfield School, but different class, different grade. I will say yes to 3 of them. And also there's the second project, the museum didn't cover the bus transportation fee. I would like to ask the application again about the budget. If we have budget, maybe we can add to their application, including the transportation fee, then we'll not let the students need to pay for the bus fee.
I also think that these 3 projects totaled, it isn't a large sum of money. And so even though it's 3 separate projects, like Jin was saying, they're all very different and very important. And so like when you're thinking about the benefit, I think that the benefit would outweigh the cost here, right? Like the cost isn't substantial.
I completely agree with both of your comments.
Yeah, I would also agree with the yes for these ones, and I really liked your idea, Chen, about funding that. I think that would really eliminate the issue of having to pay for transportation, and hopefully that would allow more students to have an opportunity.
And just also a little bit, we didn't get a chance to go in detail about the Franklin Park Zoo field trip. I mean, I think, as you're saying, Lani, about an angle that's more in terms of animal rights, in terms of students from all over the world, and that's a really focused lens as well. I think, again, just the concern is, what if we have other schools in Revere that we say no to and say yes to most projects from one particular school? That's just a question in my mind, but.
I think as we go through the applications, if we feel like there's really a tight squeeze for money, I think that we can further determine the budgetary issues from there.
Okay, it's a great point. So Garfield 3 project in the yes bucket? Second?
I second.
Approved. It's just a minute. So the next, I'll skip number 10 and go on to number 11, skipping number, just for, again, that some of our members did submit applications, so we're gonna step out of the room when it comes to that term. So the next one is number 11, is from Marilyn Morales for Always Remember. This is a live performance. It says it will be it was premiered in Miami in November. The plan is to showcase it on stages in Massachusetts. And they're also editing a video with selections from the premiere. So it's going to be also broadcasted and will be coordinated with local cable stations, and will be first shown in 2023. Feel free to add more details as well.
I'll be honest, I don't feel particularly strongly about this one. Sure, it's great and everything, but I don't really see I don't really see the connection to Revere. I don't see the benefit. I don't know how many people are still watching local cable access TV. So yeah, it just doesn't really, I feel like I said, I don't see that connection to Revere here.
I would also agree. I just want to say that it's an equitable type situation as well, where some students or people in Revere may not have access to that, then I don't want them to be able to miss out on this opportunity because of budgets. So for me, it would be a no, just because I don't think it's incredibly equitable.
For me, it will be no bucket because I really want our RCC benefit our Revere resident, and this program, I think the application come from another city and it will be virtual. We didn't really see the relationship with Revere.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think just again, the question I'm having is, even in going through the applications, if there's a project in another different region in Massachusetts, but it's also kind of, again, the arts can be moving and to share a different art from a different region, that also can establish a lot of connections with different cities and different communities. So I think it was just more of, I understand in terms of the connection to Revere, obviously, because that's a part of our priorities. But I also wonder if we're missing by saying no to other projects from different regions, but will be shown in Revere, might establish, again, stronger communities, kind of sister cities even within Massachusetts.
It's also one of those things where it's only $850. They're not asking for a great deal. So if we get to the budget part and decide we have it, it doesn't really hurt, I guess, to approve it.
For this one, I'm gonna say a maybe. I think to the point that we're all making, I think my lens here is the fact that it's virtual, and so I would rather have again, something where, like with culture, we're experiencing it firsthand. But also that being said, not every single cultural experience you're going to get to experience firsthand. And I think that that's what Samia was saying, is if we're able to have that representation virtually for the people that are interested in this, that might be of some benefit. So, it's a maybe.
I do agree with what you're saying, and I really like that both of you had made that point. Looking back at it with that new lens that you had both stated, I do like what they're doing, and I think it's great to have more Dominican voices here and have that representation for Dominican folks in Revere. My only thing was I do not, which we can get more into it next time because of its more budgeting. I just don't think we would do 2,200 for that, since some of that would go into editing, but I would love to see this performance and be able to have that recognition for folks in Revere.
And also just reading, again, the part says, this particular project celebrates the Cuban diaspora and speaks to the plight of refugees around the world. And it's also of special interest to us is the engagement of young audiences.
Yes, I do want to apologize for that. I had read it quickly. It was
No
Cuban
worries.
and not Dominican. No, I understand. I just do want to make that apology that it was Cuban.
But even in that, again, our goal with the commission, with the statement, is to uplift different communities, and that's something that I personally haven't heard a lot in Revere, and it would be great to bring, and again, from the Latinx communities in representation, the diversity in there as well. So are we saying that this is,
A maybe?
okay? Do I have a second?
I'd second a maybe.
Okay. And I just wonder if, for the secretary, for taking, in terms of a yes, and thank you. And our next one, number 12, is hip hop chair dance for seniors. And this is going to, this is music dance. The request is for $600, and it will be working in coordination with Revere Housing Authority. So it will provide classes at the Revere Housing Authority. The dance class is about an hour. Elders do a complete chair dance warm-up in hip-hop classes that begins and ends in the chairs. I think this is really cool in terms of, again, celebrating diversity, but also in terms of mental health and physical health, especially to a vulnerable population. What do we think?
I agree with that.
I agree with that too. I also like that this project is more focused on the elderly. Like, I feel like a lot of the projects that we've approved so far, they're for younger children, which I'm all in favor for, but I like that we have some diversity in age here.
Yeah, I second that.
For this agency, they have 2 applications in the same place. So after this application, the follow one is come from the same agency. Maybe we can go through these 2 applications together.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chen. Let me read the second one. The second one is called I Am Autistic, I Am Fantastic. And the request is for, the total budget is $680, but the request is for $580. And it's the musical. So it uses musical instruments, creative movement, poetry, and problem-solving activities. So the purpose of the presentation is to inspire, uplift, and educate autistic children, families, and the community at large.
So my question about this one, this jumped out at me. Obviously, this is a fantastic program. But it said, where will the project take place? Revere Housing Authority Handicap Elderly Apartments. And I was confused that a musical meant to, like we said, inspire, uplift, and educate autistic children is being put on at the elderly. I wonder if maybe they just, they did 2 applications, maybe they cut and pasted and made a mistake and they meant this to take place somewhere else. I mean, I think it would be great, but I was just curious about that, about where it's actually gonna happen.
I do see that as well. It says their target audience is senior citizens and families from Revere. So I think, as a special educator, I love seeing the representation, especially for those who are autistic. But I would say yes to this. I do just have questions of where this would be held. I think that would be my only real question for that as well. I saw that, Brendan.
Yeah, so I mean, once that's clarified, all for this one.
So with that, both, it's a yes on the yes bucket for both?
Yeah, I would say yes, once that question is clarified, yes, definitely.
All right. Second?
Yeah, I second it.
So the next one is Revere Beach Retail Pop-Up from Regina Oliveri. Apologies for the mispronunciation. The total amount is for $1,500. The proposal is a seasonal retail pop-up container on Revere Beach. The plan is to hire 2 local artists from Revere to capture Revere Beach's unique history. So it will require the local artists to hand paint images onto the container to recreate the historic vibe that the beach has.
So this one was kind of weird to me because I'm not sure, like they keep using the word container, and maybe I'm missing something, but I'm not sure what they mean by that. Are they talking about like a storage container, like shipping container or something? And I'm also wondering, do they even have, I know a pop-up is supposed to just appear and then vanish, but do they have like permission to just throw one of these up on Revere Beach? It seems like there's a lot of steps that aren't in this application. So I'm not really sure the extent of it. Like I said, if they have permission to do this. So this one seems a little weird to me.
I'm also wondering, with this container, I see that it is a pop-up. What is the retail involved and how would this benefit? What type of retail are we doing? I feel like that also makes or breaks a application like this. Like, what will this container entail? What are we selling in this? I do love that we're supporting local artists, but I just wonder if this is going to be something that benefits just them and we're paying the local artists. I guess I'm just a little confused on why we would pay it and not the applicantee. I'm not sure the proper term for that. Why they would not pay if it was benefiting their local business. I guess that's just where my confusion is. If anyone can kind of clarify that, I would like to know.
I think the phrase for me that comes out is recreate historic vibe. I wonder in doing that it captures Revere Beach. It says unique history. I think even though I think that is that's also a side in our mission statement that says uplifting Revere's heritage. So I think that's I think the other point is in terms of providing opportunities to local artists, in that local artists are at different stages perhaps in their projects, and some artists might have more abilities, more time to reach out and get permission. For instance, others want to first secure funding before they take that step. So I just wanted to mention that as a kind of to just think about as we decide.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting idea in there somewhere, but there's way too much missing from this application for me to seriously entertain it at this point.
Brendan, I agree with that. I think that we would need to have a lot more information if this business was approved, things of that sort, just logistically.
So is this a maybe bucket, or what bucket is this?
I would definitely say it's a maybe bucket. Also, just looking at the budget, it's pretty hefty. It's, I think, maybe our largest allocation if we were to approve it of $14,800. So I feel like it's definitely a maybe, and even if we were to approve it, I definitely want to see some further conversation and dialogue around it.
So
I
just
do-
to clarify, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think, they were only asking for 1,500, just to clarify. Sorry, Samia.
No, that's okay, no, that was good. But with that said, a maybe bucket for now, and then once we get more information and clarification.
Yeah, I do just want to add that they stated that the project budget was completed. So I'm just a little confused why we would give them funding to pay a local artist when they did state in the projected income that it was completed.
Okay, yeah, there's a little bit of confusion because there's still, I would hire 2 local artists from Revere. So maybe we should, yeah, definitely reaching out and getting clarification. Do I have a second for a maybe?
I'll second it.
Great. The next one is this is a visit with children's book illustrator. From Ryan O'Rourke, Paul Revere Innovation School for a request of $600. So the illustrator will describe and showcase the process of drawing and explain how his pictures come to life. Again, it says here that due to the pandemic, students have not had the opportunity to have guests visit school, and it would give the diverse populations exposure to a great experience that promotes visual arts through children's literature.
Yeah, same as the other school programs, I think this is important. They're only asking for 600. I think this is a good one.
I'll second it.
Okay. The next one is from Revere Beach Art, regarding, it says Revere Beach Art Installation from Partnership Inc. for a request of $15,000. It's proposing to design, build, and install a permanent tourist attraction sign along Revere Beach that reads Revere Beach. So the local artist, it will embody the culture of Revere, its residents, and relevant cultural themes and trends. Bless you. So the PROS project with the Revere Beach Partnership is looking to put its twist on one of these installations with our Revere Beach sign. So each of the letters will have the ability to be fully customized and individually designed by local artists. The manufacturing of the sign will allow to change the design periodically to incorporate more artists, adapt to its relevant cultural themes, and have a piece of art that is interchanging and always attracting people to see it. What do we think?
I really like this project. I think that it's a really interesting project. I was just looking at, I would be curious about the breakdown of it, just because they are asking for a large sum of money here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an interesting project, and it has significant backing from within the city already. But yeah, I think this is something that when we get to the budget part, I mean, 15,000 that's almost a quarter of the total we have to give out. So I think that might be something maybe we end up partially funding. It depends on when we look at the money a little more closely.
I agree with what you said, Brendan. I also see that Next Stop Revere has agreed to fund this project up to $15,000 as well. So I feel comfortable knowing that this project will still happen even if we are not able to fully fund this.
I think where I have a concern is cultural themes. Again, I just want to kind of take, going back to our mission statement, is that really anything with languages or culture, does it really, even with the city's backing, does it really represent the cultures, especially less heard cultures? I think that's a question I really want to check and verify to make sure that it's inclusive of as many voices all of Rivier's residents. If we just include, I guess, in each project just a few, then I think we miss, lesser heard voices. I think it's a disservice to Riviera residents. So I think that's a question. Well, I know it says there. I like the line that it says it's adaptable, but I think I would love, again, this is a project where I would love engagement, direct engagement with RCC in terms of what that looks like. I would love to see kind of a draft of what that would look like.
And I think that hopefully that the Revere Beach Partnership will hopefully allow us to have some, not full say over what is going on, but at least allow us to see some kind of vision of what is going on with what artists have they acquired? Are these artists of diverse backgrounds? Are they of lesser heard voices? I think they would be open to working with us. And if they are, I think that would definitely make it a lot easier for us to be able to have a say and a voice to make sure that those voices are addressed and are heard.
I'm also wondering too, if this is a tourist attraction, if any of the businesses on Revere Beach would be willing to contribute some sort of funds. And I mean, of course, we can't speak for them. But if this is a tourist attraction, if people are flocking to the city to see this sign, then that's of course going to bring business to the businesses on Revere Beach. And so maybe they could also partially fund it.
I think that's a great solution, but also I think I guess I hesitate with like business involvement if one of the goals, obviously in terms of just from, as a suggestion, if it's also reflecting the cultural themes in Revere. Some businesses might have obviously more voice and abilities, while perhaps other lesser heard voices might not. It was just more, that's a question that I think it's not really our role to discuss in terms of the project, but it's definitely to find more information, what that looks like, and if it's going to be a tourist attraction, will it really reflect the diversity of Revere, which I think we agreed in terms of our mission statement, that really we want to uplift the lesser heard, the diversity in Revere's heritage. So that's just the question that I had for that one.
So do we want to say a maybe for 16 as of right now? I think that we still have some more questions.
I second that.
Great. Approved. The next one is a request for $5,000 Revere High School musical. This is more of a theater angle. So there's a need to build back a drama program for high school students in the community. So actually the proposal is kind of modeling a musical in the Heights. So students at Revere High School have not had access to theater arts in over 15 years. And I personally think that this is an opportunity, especially kind of like in the Heights. So my vote is a yes for this one, but what do we think?
I think having these opportunities for theater and having this musical element in Revere High is a really big deal. I came from a community who had a large theater, and I think it's just such an important way to incorporate different students and have different voices heard, and I love that we're doing in the Heights and we're representing our population here in Revere.
I think the information that I would love is it going to be adaptable again, or is it Yeah, it's just, I would love to see kind of a script. Um, So is this a yes or a maybe?
I would say yes.
And I second the yes, yeah.
All right. So we're threading through. The next one is Flamenco para Todos en Revere, Flamenco for All in Revere from Laura Sanchez for a request for $3,500. It will take for Revere Senior Center. So all events will be free to the audience. So I do like that this is for elder adults using, again, dancing flamenco and sharing Latinx heritage and Hispanic arts. And it says that it's going to be offered in English and Spanish as well to reach the Spanish-speaking community.
I'm going to, this would be a yes for me.
Okay.
I think, again, we're benefiting seniors, and we're also reaching a different population where we are looking at Hispanic people. And I think that we do have a large Hispanic elder population in Revere. So this would be beneficial to a lot of Revere residents.
Yeah, and I think that population has suffered a lot through the pandemic as well. They haven't had significant opportunities like this, so I think this is a good one.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Okay. So this is a request from Linda Sasa. Apologies for the name, mispronunciation, but it's teaching sustainable life skills through sewing. And it's a request for $3,350. So in providing this class, participant can gain life skills which can be used to make money, save money, be creative, design their own decor and fashion. So this is learning through a group. And they can share cultural ideas about clothing, fashion, and decor. So I just want to, thing that stood out, the part is that we, as a group, we will create a project like a piece of fiber, art or quilt, where each person contributes their own sewing creation to the whole. What do we think?
I do want to mention they've also applied to Lynn, Cultural Council, for this budget as well.
Yeah.
I think my only thing would be that they have, this is for a sewing machine, so this wouldn't be applicable to use for other folks unless you owned a sewing machine. It's not sewing like by hand, it would be through the machine.
Do we have a where it's going to be taking place?
Says the Revere Community Center.
So I think that's another aspect that came to mind, in that even though Lane and kind of have the same Lane, even though it's from Lane, that I think it still has a benefit to Revere, and perhaps the theater club or the drama club can work perhaps in collaboration to provide costumes, kind of as an idea. But it was just more, do we say no just because they're not kind of specifically from Revere, although there's a great benefit to Revere, and it's a different type of of art as fashion, in that it's fashion design.
I think like you said, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm not opposed to the idea of clothes being used or just like creating things for cultural purposes. I'm just a little unclear about the budget because like we're buying sewing machines. What happens with the sewing machines after? Like, are there options to maybe even rent sewing machines? I just don't I'm not completely sure about the logistics of that.
Okay.
That was why I also pointed out that they asked for money for Lynn as well. So if they get money for sewing machines from Lynn, what does our budget do for them? Is more what I'm asking. If they're asking two cities and we both grant, what happens to that money?
I think the other thing that I want to point out is, again, and I think that there was a little bit of a discrepancy with the amount that they requested and amount that the total project would cost. The total project would cost $32,071, but they were requesting $3,350. So I think there was a little bit of mismatch on that. What I do like about this, I think that one pro of this is the fact that they're framing it from the lens of sustainability, and I think that that's something that some of these other projects don't have. But with this project, it does have that environmental factor, which is part of our mission statement as well. But again, I think that it would be important to ask those clarifying questions first before moving forward.
Okay.
I think one other question I had is, life skills are important, obviously, but does the high school have a life skills department? I'm not sure. I know Saugus does. I'm not sure if Revere does. So if this is something that's already being offered, if kids already have access to this in school, then we don't really need an external project for it, I guess. So that's my thing. Does Revere High School offer this kind of thing already in like a life skills program?
So Revere does not currently offer any programs like this.
But I also think just in terms of, there are again a lot of just artists as well, or just in terms of wanting to learn, and even adult education would be, I think it's not necessarily high school. From what I understand, it looks like it's open to everybody of all ages. So is our next step to reach out for clarification, as you said, Chloe, in terms of amount between Lynn and Revere?
Yeah, I think that was my biggest question. I love that we're learning sewing and we can be more sustainable with the environment, and that she is allowing the participants to bring in their own fabrics to be able to utilize that. I love that. I think my only objection would just be the amount. So I would say yes to this project. I think it's a great way for students to learn and for all people of Revere to be able to learn how to sew. So yes, just I would want pending more for the budget, but yes to the project.
Okay.
And sorry, really quickly, just on Brendan's point about like if there was something available at the high school. So maybe if we're allocating money to purchase sewing machines and there's still a home ec room somewhere at Revere High, like maybe these sewing machines could be left there for communal use. I was just a bit confused as to that big kind of capital expenditure cost there and what was gonna happen after this 27 hours of sessions were over. Like what happens with this equipment that we purchased?
Okay. Do we have a second to put it in the maybe bucket?
Second.
Okay. Moving on to 7R's 50th anniversary. Is that how this is a request from Concert Inc. for $1,000. So this is a new musical compilation video program from live concerts, some that were never shared before. The purpose is to have it live, so they will host at least 6 live concerts. That includes classical music played by renowned artists and Young Prize winners, but also another component is virtual, offering musical compilation videos to air on Revere local public access TV, preceded by a live Q&A Zoom session for Revere's residents. Even if public access TV is unavailable, then they're offering an airing of the program via Zoom after the Q&A. So I think the last sentence is important. The video will include clips of music by Rashmaninoff from past 7 Hours concerts to honor the composer's 150th anniversary.
For me, it's kind of hard to completely understand the direct connection. Like, I think that the Q&A session and the availability on Zoom is interesting, but for me, I feel like if the live event isn't in Revere, it's harder for me to prioritize this.
Does it say where it's going to be taken place?
It's taking place in Worthington, Massachusetts, and I do just want to add that they have also applied to a handful, I want to say maybe 22 local cultural councils as well for the budget.
Okay. So which bucket do you, are you thinking?
I think my hesitation is where the Cuban music, I'm seeing more of those lesser heard voices, which was more for our mission statement, whereas this, I'm not getting that same aspect. I don't know if anyone agrees with that. I think it's a little bit difficult for me to say yes to. I would say maybe or tilting towards no, depending on what other folks would agree.
I do like that component of classical music in terms of just also celebrating that aspect of music, which also is not wildly kind of in some communities. So that's an important lens as well, but I think I agree with you in terms of if it's, I would love to know if it will actually take place in Revere as well.
Yeah, I think it's a maybe if the money's there, but definitely not something that would be prioritized.
Do I have a second for a maybe?
I second.
Okay. So this this project is from Patrick Smith for a request of $500 for an afternoon of brass. This is classical brass concerts. And it also kind of Worcester, Boston regions.
I think this one is different from the one we just discussed, because like it says, Old South Church, Boston, I guess, you know, your residents will have access to free tickets, so it's something that people will be able to go to and experience in person. So I think that's, you know, to this project's advantage there.
Personally, I think after seeing the project description for this project, I'm for this project, and it almost makes me I don't want to make comparisons, but like to compare this to the other one, like Brendan was saying. I think that this project for me is a hard yes, whereas the other one, I don't know. I'm not leaning towards maybe. I think for the other one, I'm leaning maybe towards no. I don't know if we would like to rediscuss that or reconvene over that, but.
Okay.
I think where they have the same type of music, this one just seems like it's more accessible.
Okay.
It seems like it's more experiential, and it seems like it's in closer vicinity as well.
Okay.
I agree. I feel like it's easier to understand the connection between Revere residents and the very immediate and direct benefit that they would be able to take away from this, as opposed to maybe just something that's on Zoom or an alternative.
Yes, I think this will definitely be up to us in social media to promote this as well for Revere residents to know. So I think that would take a little bit on our part as well to promote this, to make sure that people do know that you are able to get to this event and it is free.
All right. Do I have a second for a maybe for this one? I think Lonnie, you mentioned.
So this one is a yes for me.
It's a yes?
This one would be a yes. I think to go back to that application prior to that, application 20,
Okay,
for the
yeah.
7 Hours concert.
And number 21 is yes because of accessibility.
Because of accessibility and for the, not just accessibility, convenience, but also being in person, right? So
Okay.
the other event is virtual, whereas this one, it would be live in person.
Okay. All right, so for this one specifically, it's a yes for now. Do I have a second for a yes?
I'll second the yes.
All right, great. The next one is from Bernadette Stockwell for a total of $350, and it says Revere Do Your Art. It supports a 90-minute live informational and interactive workshop to enhance creativity and elevate mood. So how do we feel about this one?
I feel like this one, they're only asking for $350. Enhance creativity and elevate mood. Sounds interesting, but it says, where will the project take place? Virtually. And then it says this proposal supports a 90-minute live informational interactive workshop. So curious to know which is it going to be? Is it going to be Zoom, or does this person have a venue that they intend to do it? I would be more inclined to be like yes if it was in person, but since there's some confusion there, I think it's more of a maybe until we sort that out.
I would agree with that. I would like to see this in person, maybe in the Revere Library or a local venue. So I would like to hear more from this woman and this local artist on what they would think, and hopefully they would be able to connect, because I would like this to be in person, especially where it's tangible art that you would be able to make. Would be a lot more constructive to be able to have that in person than that Zoom.
I think also just that, maybe just that online, I see this through the lens of kind of mental health, but also that the virtual aspect is accessible to many members. So I think I would, as Brendan said, I think personally, if it's virtual, I think that's great as well for those, and maybe it's recorded and it could be shared, but just to clarify, but not necessarily to say just because it's virtual that it's, there's no benefit to that. It's just the clarification I had in my mind. So are we saying to get more information? And then which bucket is this?
I would say maybe until we sort out the live versus Zoom question.
Do I have a second for that?
I second.
Okay. And the next one is from Alexis Suarez for a total of $6,000 regarding the Lynn Youth Writing Residency. It says the purpose of the project is to serve the greater Lynn community, ages 12 and 16. It will be a month-long experience as well. Lynn youth will be taking part in a composition workshop. So students will learn creative writing where they can explore their own writing talents with the help of trained professionals. And also will begin to edit lyrics or stanzas gearing towards actual music production. How do we feel about this one?
So as an educator in Lynn, I love the project. I'm very much for it. But I think because it's not assisting the youth in Revere, I just have to say no, because I do know that they have also applied to the Lynn, and I think that that would be a great project for Lynn Cultural Council to support. But I do love that we are outreaching to youth and we are working to making writing more accessible and trying to work to better our creative writing skills. I love the program, I don't see a benefit to Revere youth.
Yeah, agree with that 100%. Sounds great, but it's really not our thing.
But definitely, so do we want to say which bucket?
This would be in the no bucket for me.
Okay. Just because I also agree that it's a great project, I would love to, just in terms of a collaboration, I don't know, just personally to see a collaboration between Lynn Youth and Revere Youth, because I think there's a lot of similarities there, as Chloe said. The next one is A Christmas Carol, the Delvina Theater Company requesting $625. This is going to be a dramatic reading including scenes of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, complete with period costumes by a narrator and 2 other actors. So they will work closely with the Revere Council on Aging to maintain the implementation, obviously, of CDC safety protocols. So it looks like it has a virtual component, but also with a focus on older adults.
I think this sounds like a good project. I would put this in the yes bucket. It's serving Revere communities, particularly Revere senior citizens, and it's a live performance, which I think is cool. And it also has the flexibility of a virtual option, so I would say it's yes.
Yeah, and I definitely second it, yes, yeah.
All right, great. The next, I think, the next one is, my apologies, just one moment. 100 Years of Boston Comedy from Nick Zaieno requesting $200. And they already reached the Revere Public Library for appropriate venues. And this is more of humor and comedy lens. What do we think about this one? And the purpose is to apply, in applying for the grant, is so that the program is free and accessible.
I think it's interesting. It's definitely different from anything else on the list, and for $200, I think it's, yeah, I have no objections to it.
For me, it says that the project takes place, and it says, I've reached out to the Revere Public Library and continue to search for appropriate venues, so I think that it would be contingent on if it was in Revere or not for me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think where this project is very different in reading the description, this would be a yes for me, just because I do think that it reaches a different audience and it is a small amount of money.
Are we all in agreement, and is that a yes? Do I have a second for a yes? All right. And I think that's our last one, apart from 2 others.
Yes, I don't know if you both want to stay in the room so we can ask questions, because I think it would be great to be able to communicate with you both about the projects that you gave in. So I do agree, maybe you don't discuss it, but it would be great to be able to have that dialogue with both of you and be able to ask these questions that we're unable to ask these people since they are not live with us right now.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want to just go right over there and we can go up on the
Sure, I'll go after when it comes, but okay, you can come, Yeah, it's fine, you can come. I will participate in change though. Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. So the first one is from the Chinese Language and Culture Club. And it's from Chen Li for a request of $5,000. And the project will take place every Fridays for 30 weeks virtually. and the Chinese language and culture. So it started in January 2022 with the support from the Mass and Revere Cultural Councils. And it aims to teach Chinese language to youth, and empower the racial and ethnic identity by sharing positive messages about cultural history, tradition, and values. So just wanted to say that the CLCC is a multicultural club, coming from various countries and cultures. So what do we think about this one?
I think this project sounds great, and I'm also incredibly impressed with Chin's accolades. You seem like an extremely qualified person. Just to list off a couple, she has a PhD in management. She was a Fulbright scholar at Harvard, and she was a visiting assistant researcher at the University of California, Berkeley. So I think that she sounds extremely qualified to teach this.
I think Revere is lucky to have this program, and I really want to thank you for creating this program and also allowing Revere to be a part of your culture and allowing others to be able to learn as well. I think it's a really great program, and I'm really happy that hopefully we can be a part of it.
Just another comment that I want to make is this program is something that's happening on a weekly basis too. And so the amount that Chin is asking for, it's very minimal when you break it down to the work that she's completing on a weekly basis, so.
I just had a quick question since you are here. Do you think you could possibly go over what you do for a weekly, or just kind of an overview what you do per week with the students?
Yes, at the very beginning, because this program we start from last year, 2022, January, and the first meeting we collect topics, ask our members what topic do you want to have. We have the jumbo with every topic, and the whole year we go through every topic. But we do add some more things. We have Spanish parents. They are very want to share their culture with us and teach Spanish to this group. So we developed it as a 3-language culture group in part of the time. And then at the end of this year, we back to the Chinese because the schedule of the Spanish parents. But we are very open to different culture in any case some other cultures parents want to use this as a space for their children to know different culture, and for Chinese children to know other cultures. This will be a welcome, friendly, and open space for everyone. And for our weekly based language learning, we have topic like greeting. We have learned the seasons, how do you say that, seasons in 3 language. We have like the day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, how do you say that in 3 languages. And we also have cultural event. We have the Dragon Boat Festival. We have the Mid-Autumn Day Festival. We introduce all the festival in Chinese culture. And also when there's special festival from other cultures, we invite some guests to show up in our meeting and to share the culture with us.
And Jen, could you just say what are the languages?
We have Mandarin, Cantonese, we have Spanish, I believe we have some other small languages in the group speak in the home, like Portuguese and Arabic. We have Arabic speaker in our group too. Yeah, I know these languages. Of course, English.
So I would put this in the yes bucket.
I would second that. Thank you for bringing more culture to Revere.
All right.
All right, so our chair has brought forth a project called, please correct me if I'm wrong too, the Amazon, how do you pronounce that? I want to make sure that I'm stating it correctly.
Amazir.
Amazigh Poetry Project seeks to collect Indigenous and North African Amazigh poetry before it disappears, especially as elders are passing away. It seeks to highlight the struggles that Indigenous North Africans continue to face in North Africa. And as immigrants in Massachusetts and diaspora, APP is a documentary in which a crew will travel to Morocco and record Amazigh poetry and collect poems from selected areas. And they're asking for a budget of $20,000. So I don't know if you would like to say a few words about the project before we decide, like we allow Chin to do as well.
Sure, and also just, of course, like as all members, this should be looked at as any other application. I think that's really, I want to stress that out in that, just because of my kind of involvement in the membership, that should not cloud any judgment on this project. But the poetry project started in when I was in college, and it took me a long time to save up. And because of the pandemic, a lot of elders have been passing. The Indigenous North African community is often not heard, and it's misrepresented, and there's a lot of misinformation. And there's a large, actually, population in Massachusetts, specifically in Revere. Myself being an Indigenous woman, for example, and I think it's also the importance of those lesser heard voices. So the documentary will go and collect poetry, and really the focus is on the women they're obviously stereotyped. That's kind of, the other term that's known for this group are called Berber or barbarians, but they prefer Amazigh, which is free. And for these women, it's thousands of years of literature. They have a lot of that they're really volumes of oral literature. So it's really changing that oral literature into literal art in collecting all of that poetry before it disappears. And especially because of the pandemic, there has been a lot of loss from those elders, and because of Arabization and also globalization, the Indigenous culture is really at a threat. So my request for this project is, this has been a long term, and I did not want to ask for a grant or anything because I wanted to save up myself. And the budget was $100,000, and now it's $80,000. In terms of the request for the whole budget. But specifically, I wanted to extend it to the community to participate, and this is why I applied to the documentary, so that it's an opportunity it's really in terms of the importance of uplifting vulnerable groups, but also in sharing and protecting traditions and art before it disappears, specifically for some communities which are in the shadows and continue to be in the shadows. So the aim of it is to raise awareness, but also protect that poetry.
So first of all, I want to say thank you so much for bringing that culture and the Amazigh culture to light here in Revere. I think it's really important to have that. I think my only question for it is, if we cannot budgetarily do the 20,000, how would that affect the project? Would you be able to still do the project, or how would that impact your project?
So it's more of, in terms of time, that I've been saving up myself to meet the budget personally, because this is this is a community that's in terms of being protective, so it will mean more time in saving up versus in terms of, can't really control the elders passing away, especially with, so it's more kind of, time of the essence was always an issue even at the beginning. So I think it will prolong the project, but it will happen regardless, whether it's this grant or any other grant. It was more, it's just providing an opportunity for everyone to participate.
I mean, I think it's an extremely noble project and obviously an urgent one. And I think we'd all love to, provide some funding for it. I think it's just a question of whether or not, 20,000 is, almost a third, of our total budget. So I think it's a matter of figuring out what we could, realistically contribute.
I think it sounds like a fantastic project and obviously a huge part of your life, and it's really exciting that you can bring this forward. My question would be, so if we were to allocate X amount of money to fund this, would any of that money go towards actually like showing it or having an event in Revere? Because I feel like that's kind of the part that would really directly benefit the Revere community. So like, would that be included in that amount that we'd be budgeting?
So yeah, the goal was in terms of showcasing stages, the Massachusetts area, but a lot of indigenous North Africans live in Revere. So there's kind of American and that North African indigenous lens side that's not seen. So it would be, again, and it would be an open up a conversation, not necessarily about the Amazigh as an indigenous group is an example. A lot of, again, just even here as an immigrant, there's the indigenous Americans as well. So I think it's just a broader conversation in showcasing with Q&A after the documentary to put light on indigenous people's struggle.
I think my last question would be, it says the project would take place in 2023 into 2025. Does that mean that the project will be able to be completed within that year? Because I know when we give out that money, it would only be able to give you that for that year. Would this project be able to be accessibly completed in that year?
So over the years, I went to Morocco to collect some poetry, but the main part to actually go with the crew is what I'm asking for in terms of transportation and flights for the crew. And of course, when the documentary is finished, there's also the broadcasting stage, just that post-production stage. So that's why I put it close to 2023 and 2025. Are you asking in terms of the deadline where it could, that the 2024 is?
Yeah, so with the other ones, those events were occurring in 2023, and I do understand what you're saying about getting the budget for flying them over, but where I just see it a little bit different with this one opposed to the others is all those events occur in 2023, so I'm wondering how that would, if the project would have be completed in 2023, or if any of that budget would go into some sort of event in this fiscal year.
The events, which is specifically, obviously, the collection in the documentary filming is 2023, but as a potential date. But in terms of the implementation of the project, which showcasing 2024, 2025.
So I think that this sounds like a fantastic project, and I think that with the decisions that we have to make financially, I would love to fund this project. I think that we would have to be able to fund it partially, and I think depending on how much money that is, that's something that we can decide in like a later meeting. But this would be a yes for me, but for a partial funding amount, to be partially funded.
I second that. I think that like earlier projects that we mentioned, when it kind of got to that more sizable allocation of the budget, we obviously had conversations about kind of revisiting from there. So I think that this is the case here too.
All right.
Thank you, Chloe, and then putting that hat off, now the chair hat. Apologies again for any of that inconvenience, but the goal is really for us that it's important that each application is seen as its own and that none of our membership influences any of that decision. So in terms of next steps, now that we went through the yes, no's, and maybes bucket, another meeting would be and it's scheduled after we get information, clarifying information, and then that meeting would be specifically discussing the amount. Does that sound good with everybody? And I will open it up for any public input, if there's anyone in the audience, before we close the meeting. Or if there's any comments or any additional from our members.
I just wanted to mention 2 happenings in the city. I know that that was something that we kind of briefed over before. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. So there is a Veterans Day ceremony and dinner dance. It's at the Matola Post. It's at 5 o'clock. And then on Saturday, there's also the Northeast Karate Championship. That's going to be at the Susan B. Anthony Middle School gym. So good luck to them.
Also, in terms of upcoming events, December 3rd, there are holiday events at Suffolk Downs and the Revere History Museum. And those have begun to be advertised and posted about today.
Brenda, I was also, just before we close out, I was hoping you could mention about the blankets that the women were making at the Revere Historical Society.
Yeah, definitely. The Welcome Blanket Program is every first Saturday of every month at the Revere History Museum. And it's a program where people come and learn, varying levels of experience, but you can learn quilting and things like that. And they make blankets to give to new residents of Revere. People can talk about their experiences, immigration, and things like that. First Saturday of every month, Revere History Museum at 10 a.m.
Great, thank you. And if there, go ahead.
Sorry, I did want to mention 2 other events. There is another event on Thanksgiving Day. I'm not entirely sure what that day is, what the actual date is. But it's 2 weeks from today, and it's just the Revere High football game. So it's just the Thanksgiving game between Revere and Winthrop. And there is also, I believe that this is open to the city. It's a complimentary Thanksgiving dinner. So this is the Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving, and this would be at Casa Lucia.
And also, if you have any ideas in terms of events that, obviously we are at a capacity as members, but we are working on a section of our goals, which is to create, sponsor our own events. So if you have ideas, please share with us. And thank you, everybody. And with that, closing the meeting.